Debate time at Westminster, but a debate with a difference. The familiar faces, the usual razzmatazz, the stakes as high as ever, and David Dimbleby holding the ring. But tonight's debate at the Methodist Central Hall was for opposition parties only, the Tories and Lib Dems choosing to sit this one out as part of a wider deal on the election debates. So at the podiums, just 5 men and women who lead their parties, and only one, Ed Miliband, who realistically could lead the country.
The first question tonight.
And they began by attacking not each other, but the absent Prime Minister, who wanted only one debate.
Now, David Cameron has chosen not to come tonight. He's chosen not to defend his record.
And it's a great shame that David Cameron is not here.
And I think it's a disgrace that David Cameron's not here tonight to defend his record. But I want to see...
But very quickly, Ed Miliband found himself under fire, from left and right.
If you were Prime Minister, Ed, I wonder if you could tell us, would you be prepared to hold an emergency budget to reverse those Tory spending cuts?
I haven't heard from you, Ed, a single cut that you would make. Not one.
And I want to say to Ed, we share a desire to see the back of the Tories, but surely we don't want to replace the Tories with Tory light. We need to replace the Tories with something better.
Ed Miliband, just...
Like you say to some of the people on stage tonight, let's not pretend there's no difference between me and David Cameron. You know, Nicola, there's a huge difference between me and David Cameron. Just the 3 things that we've mentioned, and so many other things besides. And look, the real danger in this country is of a re-elected David Cameron who doubles the spending cuts, falling living standards and a threat to our National Health Service. And that is the big choice on offer at this election.
And then for perhaps the first time they debated foreign policy, with Ed Miliband clearly trying to show he was made of prime ministerial stuff.
You know, we've got to learn the lessons of the past. We can't have Britain thinking it can solve the problems of the world on its own with the United States. That is the lesson of the 2003 Iraq War. But at the same time, we can't withdraw from the world, because otherwise those problems will visit us here at home.
Do you really think the problems caused by ISIS can be resolved with nuclear weapons?
No.
I mean, if you were Prime Minister,
no.
Would you press the button if
no.
you had an opportunity?
No, it's not about ISIS, but...
The Labour leader said the nuclear deterrent should be kept. The SNP leader said it should not.
You see, in 2013, David Cameron came to me and Nick Clegg, and they said that they wanted to bomb Syria. And they hadn't thought through the consequences. It wasn't a last resort, so I said no. And as a result, the British Parliament said no, and then President Obama decided not to go ahead with that action. So it's right to be judicious about these things. Military action, a last resort, but in the case of ISIS, I'll continue it.
You know, Ed's right when he says we live in a dangerous world, and Leanne's absolutely right to say that Trident will not defend us against ISIS. I take the view that the world we live in is not made safer by us renewing our nuclear weapons.
And then on immigration, the panel turned their fire on the UKIP leader.
Do you know, immigrants from the European Union into this country make a net contribution to our country. So if we can maybe just put the bogeyman to one side.
Well, I'm afraid, Leon, I entirely disagree with the premise of your question. What's put our public services at risk is austerity, failure to invest and privatisation, particularly of our NHS.
So you abuse immigrants and those with HIV and then complain that UKIP is being abused? Now, there is a risk to public services, but I don't believe that that comes from immigration. I believe that that has come about as a result of cuts.
Is the job of the National Health Service to look after people here, or is it to be an international health service? And I can assure you, whatever you may think on this panel, the vast majority of British people want this to be a national health service.
David,
here's the problem I have with you, Nigel, is you want to exploit people's fears rather than address them.
And with a hung parliament likely and the SNP riding high in the polls, Nicola Sturgeon made Ed Miliband an offer.
I can help Labour be bolder to deliver the change that we really need, because that's what this election is about. For me, it's about making Scotland's voice heard. But secondly, it's about delivering real change, not pretend change, but real change for people right across this country. Don't turn your back on that, Ed, and let David Cameron back into Downing Street.
I've got fundamental disagreements with you, Nicola, because in the last couple of weeks, you've revealed that you haven't ruled out having a second referendum on independence in the next 5 years. Now, look, we're just very different we've got very different views. I mean, I respect your views that you want to break up the country, but that's not my view.
The formal exchanges are now over and the politicians and pundits are debating the debate. The question, though, is what the voters think. James Landale, BBC News, Westminster.